Yeah, what's up?
Oh, no. No, oh god, no. Now it's setting.
Good evening, and welcome to tonight's town hall event with the United States Congressman Tonko. We invite you to find your seats, silence your electronic devices, and make yourself comfortable. The program will begin shortly. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's town hall event by United States Congressman Tonko. Before we begin, we have some brief housekeeping remarks. In the event of an emergency, please use the nearest marked exit. There's an exit on one side of the stage and at the main entrance. As always, follow the guidance of law enforcement and public safety professionals. Secondly, please be respectful in your questioning and interactions. Behavior that is unbecoming in a civil discussion will not be encouraged and may result in removal from tonight's event. Also, restrooms and water stations are available right outside the doors this morning. An event staff member will gladly be able to direct you to these areas. Also, as a courtesy, please silence all of your electronic devices. And here's a summary of tonight's program. We will start with some introductory remarks by Congressman Tonko. This will be followed by a brief moderated discussion to answer a few pre-submitted questions on behalf of other community members who are unable to attend, or maybe viewing via live stream on YouTube. Lastly, we will have a live Q&A session with questions from you, tonight's live audience. If you express interest in asking a live question at check-in, you must have received a raffle ticket. If your number is called, please proceed to the event staff member holding a microphone in the aisle closest to you. If mobility for any reason is an issue, please raise your hand, and an event staff member will gladly bring the microphone to you. To ensure as many voices as possible are heard, we ask that you please keep your question brief, and perhaps in a new topic if a similar question has already been asked. If you haven't received a raffle ticket and would like to ask a question, you can still check in at the front desk. To respect your time, tonight's event will end at 7:30 p.m. If you are unable to ask a question due to time limitations, we ask that you kindly reach out to the Congressman's office via phone, our website, tonko.house.gov, or talk to a member of our event staff who are wearing tags to identify themselves tonight. Following which, we'll be able to give you a thoughtful reply to your question. Thank you for your cooperation, and most importantly, thank you for being engaged citizens, which is demonstrated by your presence at tonight's important event. Lastly, we would also like to take this opportunity to thank Hudson Valley Community College for being a great partner and venue for tonight's event. We would like to ask Officer in Charge, Mr. Lewis Copeland, to stand and be recognized by tonight's audience. Also, we would like to thank the many elected officials who have chosen to spend their precious time with us tonight. Please hold your applause until all the names are read. Expected to be in attendance tonight are New York State Senator Pat Fay, New York State Assembly Member John McDonald, Rensselaer County Legislators Ken Zalewski and Carol Weaver, Scapa Mayor Scott Rice, and immediate former mayor of the city of Troy, Pat Madden. We kindly ask them to rise and be recognized by tonight's live audience. At this time, if you are able to, please rise for the flag and the national anthem of the United States of America. this time, please join us in welcoming to the stage the United States Representative for New York's 20th Congressional District, proudly representing our capital region in the United States House of Representatives, our Congressman, Paul Tonko.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Good evening. Let me thank you for the warm reception and thank you for choosing to spend your evening with us engaging in the democratic process. I begin tonight by acknowledging the horrifying events that took place in Minnesota this weekend, where a gunman targeted 2 state legislators and their families in a brazen attack on their homes, killing former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Portman and her husband Mark, and leaving State Senator John Hoffman and his wife Yvette in critical condition. Let's offer just a moment of silence, please. Our condolences go out to their family members and friends and colleagues. Let me be crystal clear. There is absolutely no place for political violence in our beloved nation. None whatsoever. This weekend, as I prayed for the families of those targeted in this appalling act of violence, I was reminded of the words of one of my heroes, Senator Robert F. Kennedy. On April 4th, 1968, following the assassination of another one of my heroes, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Senator Kennedy addressed the crowd in Indianapolis during a similar tumultuous time for the American people. And he quoted it as follows: "In this difficult day, in this difficult time for the United States," he said, "it is perhaps well to ask what kind of a nation we are and what direction we want to move in." Today, we are also in difficult times, and we are asking those very same questions. Robert Kennedy had an answer to that question. What we need in the United States is not division, he said. What we need in the United States is not hatred. What we need in the United States is not violence or lawlessness, but love and wisdom and compassion toward one another, and a feeling of justice towards those who still suffer within our community. The morning after the horrific events in Minnesota, still reeling from the shock, I saw a glimpse of what the future Senator Kennedy saw before his own assassination a few months later. On Saturday, I saw millions of Americans, including thousands here in our great capital region, come out to protest peacefully against an administration that has made violence and lawlessness its hallmark. Millions of people coming together to say with one voice, resoundingly, that there are no kings in America, that fear and cruelty must not be our watchwords, and that a better future is possible. So as we keep Melissa Portman and John Hoffman and their families close in our thoughts and in our hearts, let us all dedicate ourselves to the better future they fought for. Let us have hope for our country and all of her people. I'm truly heartened to see all of you here tonight, each of you committed to making a positive difference. And I am indeed eager to hear your thoughts on how we move forward. Now, my goal for tonight is to get to as many of your questions as possible, so I'll provide a quick update from Washington, followed by a brief conversation with our fantastic moderator, Reverend Donna Elia, and then we'll have plenty of time for an open question and answer portion. I won't sugarcoat it, my friends. We're here tonight in a time of grave peril for our nation. I've made no secret of the fact that I am a critic of President Trump's policies. But I want to be clear that my concern and opposition go well beyond any mere policy dispute or political squabble. What we are facing in this moment is a full-blown authoritarian movement led by a wannabe dictator in Donald Trump. Since his first day back in office in January, Donald Trump has made clear that he has no respect for the rule of law, no respect for the Constitution, no respect for the separation of powers, and no respect for the democratic norms that have helped bind our country together over these past nearly 250 years. These authoritarian inclinations are evident in ways large and small, from his demands of total submission, from institutions he finds threatening, like law firms, media corporations, and universities, to his more childish efforts to rename the Gulf of Mexico and make Canada our 51st state. Most disturbing, Donald Trump has now mobilized the National Guard, an active duty Marines against American protesters in California who have the audacity to peacefully oppose his draconian immigration crackdowns. They even went so far as to assault and handcuff a United States Senator because he was asking a question at a press conference. There are moves there that come straight out of the authoritarian textbook. At the same time that he is sending the military into our communities and parading tanks down the streets of our nation's capital, Donald Trump is working overtime to consolidate his power in Washington, and Republicans in Congress are enabling him by passing his so-called big, beautiful bill in the middle of the night. Folks, there is nothing beautiful about this proposal. This big, ugly bill is another perfect distillation of his authoritarian ethos. First, they separate and divide people by scapegoating transgender kids and immigrants, making their supporters believe that these groups are the cause of all of our ills. Then they destroy the safety nets that help keep our communities strong, ripping health care away from some 16 million people and taking food away from those who are in need of food. Next, they reward their cronies with trillions in massive tax breaks and fossil fuel deregulation that will pollute the air we breathe and the water we drink. And finally, they accumulate more power for themselves by authorizing hundreds of billions in new funding for their militaristic mass deportation agenda. In this moment, there is no separating the policy debate from the political debate. Every action from this administration is part of the larger authoritarian agenda, all part of the project to aggrandize Trump and to make him a would-be king in America. In order for this grotesque project to succeed, they need us to feel defeated and us to feel isolated. They need us to fear each other and to only worry about their own narrow self-interest. Most of all, they need us to comply when we are at our most vulnerable. They need us to be silent when confronted with bald-faced lies. Let me be crystal clear. I will never comply, and I will never be silent. With the monumental task laid before us, how do we proceed in fighting for a country ruled by the consent of the government rather than by the whims of the would-be tyrants? What do we do to help pull our communities back from the brink and work to rebuild a world based on our shared values of fairness, of truth, and yes, justice for all? It's going to take all of us. There is no magical solution that is going to get us quickly out of this mess. The work to fight back against the regime will be long, slow, and hard as a process, but truth still matters, and if we protect it together, we can indeed strengthen our democracy. We must fill each other with the courage to stand up and speak out, even when it is hard to do so. Everyone's contribution to this effort will look different. For some, it could look as simple as attending a community meeting, or checking in on a friend, or helping a local organization in need, or calling my office to share your story. For me, this fight can take the form of a 3 a.m. committee debate to protect Medicaid, spending 26 straight hours in a committee room to try and slow down this disastrous agenda with a committee markup and illuminate the harmful impact for the American people. It's the thousands of miles I put on the car each month to hear directly from my constituents and doing my best to keep you informed and updated through my social media channels. So it's speaking out when ICE grabs our neighbors off the streets, helping our communities understand their rights, and having a dedicated staff that works around the clock to help every single constituent in need. It's not being afraid to take our message on the road and traveling to the North Country to discuss the impacts of Medicaid cuts on rural communities, because everyone deserves effective representation, whether or not they are currently receiving it. It's convening and hosting events like our recent LGBTQ plus resource fair that brought together local organizations from health providers, the community choirs, the hockey leagues, united and showing up for our community. We are one big, wonderful community. The best resilience is connected, informed, and caring communities that can indeed withstand the pressures of top-down attacks. This fight can take many forms. I don't pretend to have all the answers, and I'm always willing to learn and grow. But know I am in this fight with all of my heart and soul because I believe in the fundamental goodness of our country. And I know deep down that we are better and bigger than whatever future President Trump envisions for us. So, my friends, I will never be silent. I will never stop fighting for this country I believe in and that you believe in, and for the communities and people I represent. Never forget that we are strong and he is weak. We must move forward with the confidence, pride, and self-respect of a sovereign people. We're a nation founded almost 250 years ago on the idea that we would never bow down to tyrants. And we're sure as hell not going to start now. Yes, our country has spoken. Not now, not ever. The beating heart and North Star of our nation. And the words it was founded upon remain truer now than ever. Those words, we the people. People power. That's the power. So it is our fight. Let's get to work. And I thank you again for being here this evening. With that, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the conversation with Reverend Donna and to hearing your questions. Again, my heartfelt thanks.
At this time, please join us in welcoming the moderator of tonight's discussion and Q&A session, a faith leader, a minister, community advocate, fellow resident of the Capital Region, and executive director of the Troy Area United Ministries. Please give a warm welcome to Reverend Donna Eli.
Tonko and everyone who's here gathered tonight. And for this portion of our program, we're going to ask a couple of questions that were captured before that people submitted. It's a synopsis of them. And so Congressman began to touch upon these issues. I'm going to ask you to add to them. And first is this. The Republicans' big, beautiful budget bill imposes steep cuts to Medicaid, food assistance programs, and other essential services Americans rely on. Can you explain why it's so harmful and what's harmful about the plan and what we can do to stop it?
Thank you again, Reverend Donna, for being our facilitator here this evening. We appreciate your work in the area to address human needs and human services, and much respected as a debate committee. Thank you. To the big beautiful bill, which I don't see much of you anyway. You're taking 16 million people's health care away from them. And we've worked really hard, certainly during my tenure in Congress, with the Affordable Care Act in efforts to make certain that we had reliable, accessible, affordable, quality health care. This is a move going back. And it's a attack on that. You cannot take $800 billion, $700 billion, that range of money from Medicaid, which then costs a $500 million cut to Medicare, and expect not going to have an effect on the communities that we all own. It means that it walks away from the dignity of a human being, a human right in our society, and that being healthcare. So that's the first bill. But then when you look at some of the nutrition numbers in food insecure households or food insecure neighborhoods, to deny $320 billion of assistance for food programs, including children's programs in school, is again a heartless, insensitive approach to addressing the quality of life and nutrition, which is a very valuable element of the healthcare equation. For seniors who might be living with, for instance, diabetes, or for children who can't learn on anything else. So this is, I think, again, not a sound expression of community, very hurtful cuts. Let's go forward and raise the debt ceiling limit. You know, all I heard from my colleagues on the other side of the aisle was that they were deficit hawks. But this budget defines that as a deficit tax because we're willing to add trillions, $5 trillion in the immediate zone to our deficit. And over the span of some next 10 to 15 years, really bloating that deficit by anywhere from 20 to 33. So we're talking about major impacts here that will cause heartache for generations to follow and immediate pain in the efforts now to make certain that we have quality government that reaches people in a fair and just manner. And all of these cuts, which are draconian in nature, all of these cuts which amount to 1.7 trillion are impacting the quality of life of our neighbors and perhaps our own family. But it's also the bottom that they needed to secure because a tax cut costs. It's an expenditure in our budget. And so that tax cut that they want to offer required those severe cuts, and then they borrow the rest in the trillions. So this is offering financial insecurity, it's cutting programs that are serving the great many of us, all to provide a cut for billionaires to the very few of us in this country with a tax cut that they really haven't requested. So I think this is like a very heartless plan, one that doesn't speak to the needs of our communities, and also it engages in a harmful outcome by reducing some of the work that was done for clean energy, innovation, precision economy. Those dynamics require investments, be they tax incentives or rebates in terms of energy efficiency, or just dollars for manufacturing to retrofit their systems to be all the more productive by being energy smart. All of that is creating many, many jobs in our community, significant paying jobs. So the list goes on and on, but I think you get the picture. It's not new.
Thank you, Congressman. The second question is this. President Trump's recent moves to federalize the California National Guard and send active duty Marines to put down protests in Los Angeles have raised renewed concerns about the abuse of presidential power. How do you view these actions, and what are Democrats doing to fight back?
Well, I think the evidence is very clear that there was no request from the governor of California, no request from the mayor of Los Angeles. There was no request that I believe in the LA police institutional effort was that they commanded the situation. And they insisted on bringing in the National Guard, which I think escalated activity rather than de-escalated the activity, which then creates a harmful situation. The effort here is to roll back to local control of the effort. Most people were in protest with in great civility and with peaceful protests, just outspoken about the cuts that are to come in this budget, if this budget were passed. And I think it just expresses a fear of listening to the American public, critiquing this document. And what do we have to fear the public opinion for? This is part of a democracy, for people to be able to engage in the development of that budget. And so I found it un-American and unnecessary And we're going to continue to work to make certain that we get it back to a structured program where the local enforcement will address the situation.
Thank you, Congressman. Now, we come to the final and most important portion of tonight's event, which is to have the opportunity to directly answer questions from those who have joined us on this evening. So please get out your raffle tickets, everyone, and as mentioned earlier, to ensure fairness in the process, in the limited time that we have, I'll call out 6 raffle ticket numbers at this time from the basket. And if your number is called, please go to the microphone nearest you, and if you are not able to walk to the microphone, please raise your hand, and one of the staff people will bring a microphone to you, and I will call out those numbers momentarily. And please bring your raffle ticket up with you as well. The first one is 870539. 870539. The second is 870580. 870580. 870559. 870559. 870547. 870547. 870549. 870549. And 870494. 870494.
Sorry, no door prizes, but we appreciate you having a question.
Test, test.
Is that connected to
Good afternoon. What steps are being taken to help lower energy costs and support clean energy jobs in places like Troy and the rural municipalities?
The question is, what steps are being taken to support lowering energy costs? And the last part.
And clean energy jobs.
And to provide for clean energy jobs. You know, what was done in the Inflation Reduction Act and some other measures done in the 117th session of Congress, which was 21-22, were significant in transforming us into an innovation in the energy economy. And basically, there are many efforts in there to provide for efficiency mechanisms that give taxpayers incentives to do so, to lower their bills. We have a weatherization assistance program that we modernized and stretched as we reauthorized it. That also helps certain households. We have a lot of opportunity in this area, research and development, to put together the prototypes and become product lines that address energy efficiency for manufacturing, for businesses, for households, for institutions like Hudson Valley. We've got campuses like this that are training the workforce of the future for clean energy. And we've got research being done in private and public capacity, GE, RPI, and City Albany, to name a few. And then we've got the manufacturing of product lines that is happening here in the capital region. So we were tremendously benefited from every perspective of legislation that was done. The effort now is to prevent any clawback of that progress. There's an effort to, again, sweep these dollars and utilize them for tax cuts for the billionaires and to deny the programs that were growing jobs. So my fight right now is a member of Energy and Commerce, which which has a subcommittee on energy and a subcommittee on environment, where I lead a voice for the Democratic Party. We're going to continue to fight the fight to keep those efforts that really bridge the gap into a new era of clean energy. So that includes all kinds of transformational efforts, from transportation to heating to cooling to energy generation and energy delivery. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Stephanie. I protested for the first time Saturday. Do you think, and my husband thinks I'm crazy, that with all the protesting, is it possible, knowing Trump can't run again, could we possibly slip enough Republicans for an impeachment?
First, let me give a shout out to all those who attended any of the demonstrations. And then tip of the hat to all of those who helped organize and lead the effort. The latest calculation that I have heard in the media is that well over 5 million was the number that addressed all of this big, beautiful bill from coast to coast. So here's the facts. We don't control the House or the Senate, and of course not the White House. But I have voted for impeachment of Mr. Trump in the past. I think there is ample evidence of, defying, not respecting the Constitution, rule of law, kidnapping people in the streets, deporting them to foreign prisons, dismantling some of our very important agencies. A lot of work that's been being done that is, causing a lot of attention toward that effort of impeachment. While the votes aren't there, we should, I think, address this publicly and programmatically and do all we can to build the case so that when given the opportunity, we can move forward. But there's clearly a defiance of the Constitution and the rule of law and this effort to centralize power in one being, which I think is not in accordance with what our framers envisioned 250 years ago. So, thank you.
Hello, Representative Tonko. I'm a roofer, and I work with immigrants to help house New Yorkers. What are you doing? What are you doing to, one, protect immigrants from kidnappings, two, to grant mass amnesty to these immigrants, and three, to abolish ICE?
We have, in bilingual format, information that we have shared with the public on our media, and certainly when they call the office, we advise them and get information to the public on their rights and to know those rights so that they can be effective in the effort. In terms of protecting the immigrants, moving forward and making certain that, however possible, with litigation, communication, making certain that their case is made known and that we make every effort to protect them, and in the case of kidnapping, making certain that they're given every bit of habeas corpus. So, that's what really has been driving a lot of this concern. And then finally, with ICE, I believe, we have stayed on top of this case. Anytime we get anything reported to us in our office, either in Saratoga or in Albany in the 20th Congressional District, we move right on to it. We want to know what the facts are. We want to get the details. We call ICE, but that overplay. When you start the day with a quota, that is not what the function ought to be. If you're looking for people who are illegal, find them. If the count is 2, so be it. If the count is 3,000, so be it. But to start the day saying, we have to find 3,000, that's how many innocent people are being dragged into this process unnecessarily and unconstitutionally and illegally. So we'll continue to battle that effort.
Good evening, Representative Tonko. My name is Taylor Lizette, and I want to thank you for your time this evening. My question is in regards to DOGE, the Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. I believe a few days ago that the first round of cuts from DOGE passed the House. These cuts include they affect PBS, NPR, and also PEPFAR, which I believe is the AIDS and HIV prevention around the world. I'm wondering, since those cuts have already passed the House, what can we do to prevent something like this in the future from happening, and what you and our friends in the Senate are doing to help this?
Well, thank you for your question. Basically, we are fighting how hard we can, but we don't have the majority in either house, but it's pointing out the examples of what is going to happen with these cuts. You know, to public radio, public TV, to the various agency programs. I have talked to people as federal workers in our region, and there are many, who have been displaced, put on stay, or absolutely terminated. And their message is across the board the same message. No one came to examine the culture of our agency, the mission statement, the implementation of that statement. No one asked the employee for a review of their records for job performance. And in many cases, people said they had superlative or excellent reviews. And so they're just terminating, in many cases, multiple decades of careers here that individuals have had. So we're trying to highlight all of this injustice. We're putting it together, documenting it, sharing it in committees that are appropriate, sticking it to it on the floor, making certain that people are fully aware. And you know, no one person or office is going to save this process. It's going to require all of us. So that we in this room, all of us were working together, as we saw on Saturday, that raises the volume, it raises the attention, and it raises the potential for stopping a lot of these cuts. And that's what it's going to take, because we don't have the clout in each of the houses. We need to flip that house and the Senate and move forward with a better opportunity.
Congressman, thank you for your service to the Capital Region. I have a question. What do you think is going to move some of your Republican colleagues from their position right now, given the mess socially and economically that's going on?
You know, I've been quoted many times over the last few weeks, if not months, that if the words don't reach the people, the pain will. And, you know, when you deny people access to health care, when you're requiring individuals in the expanded portion of Medicaid, which is 100% of poverty to 138%, which includes perhaps 60-some thousand in this congressional district, when they have to pay $35 for each and every visit, people will then realize that these cuts were real. They're not on paper, they're not in press conferences, it's people's lives that we're affecting here. And when people realize what those cuts mean, the message will get even more severe. But I think demonstrations like this weekend show how many people are paying attention. And you know, to repeat myself in my opening comments, it's the people power. It's all of us making a statement boldly and forcefully and saying we're not going to accept this. That will, I think, put a lot of people in marginal situations in public office, thinking a lot more closely and sensitively about what the consequences could be here for them. So thank you.
As I draw the next 6 questions will go as long as we have time. So 870 870-457. 870-457. 870-317. 870-317. Somebody asked me to kindly reach for the bottom, so I'm reaching for the bottom. 870-440. 870-440. 870-453. 870-453. 870-399. 870-399. And 870-400. 870-400.
Well, welcome, Team 2.
Thank you, Representative Tonko, for coming. My name is Laura, and my family relies on SNAP in Medicaid. And we as a family would like to urge Congress to reject cuts to Medicaid, reject cuts to SNAP benefits, invest in essential housing and homelessness assistance programs like Housing First, and most of all, we urge Congress to listen to millions of people who rely on these services. And we would like to know specifically how you can help make this happen.
You know, we're doing everything we can, or any new ideas we're welcome to. But let me share something. We've done roundtable discussions with a number of the food banks and food kitchens for food assistance programs in the area. And it was a real good way. The press was very cooperative. They came, they highlighted the discussions, aired it in the news. And, you know, Reverend Donovan know this because of the work they do with Tonko, with Troy Area United Ministries, a great organization. But speaking to those fundamental needs, housing, nutrition that you made mention of in your question, those are the basics. So we highlight that so as to inform the public that before you go and give a tax cut to a billionaire, know you're cutting a great number of families out of nutrition, and you're not addressing the housing dilemma. Now, we're 4+ million housing units short in this country. And so the Democrats have a plan to provide incentives, to put down payments into some very modest homes that are first-time buyer homes, startups, or building home equity. We're also working on a lot of housing opportunities through housing authorities for people to have, again, the chance at quality, safe housing. And we're going to continue to approach that agenda. Now, whether or not we're going to get cooperation from this administration, I'm hearing nothing about housing. And it's all about just lining the pockets of billionaires and gutting agencies, especially those individuals who have institutional memory, so as to know how to carry on with the programs at those agencies. So we've got our work cut out for us, but again, it's public acknowledgement, it's public information, public access, developing, conversation, and having people hear those concerns firsthand. I think we impact people with storytelling. Stories are working much better than statistics. People tell their heartwarming stories, heart-wrenching stories of perhaps denying this flow of revenue for food. They get it and they support the efforts to reinstate those funds. So it's through public advocacy and public information and gatherings like this and like we saw on Saturday. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you both for being here tonight. My name is Mary Ann, and I wanted to ask, now that DOJ has access to all of, they're reporting that DOJ has access to data belonging to pretty much all of America. Do you know what are they planning to do with that, and how are lawmakers and
there's a lot of effort made to work on it. I'm not on the committee that would address it, but a number of people speaking to security of public information. Unfortunately, the court's rules that they couldn't go in and access that information, but they had already done so. And so the devious nature of what they had done in defying court orders, they were given warnings, is very problematic. What they do with the data that are going to be in their hands is anybody's guess, but certainly could be used in very harmful ways. I think there was a major effort to use technology in the last election, and when you have 250 billion, 300 billion going towards a candidate's campaign, and you have that same person equipped with the technology to misinform and disinform, you can do a lot with those data. So I don't know what other devious efforts they would make, but it's troublesome that people thought that, with Social Security and Medicare, a lot of these info feeds, the data compilation, would be secure. So there are moves underway to advance the security of all those dollars. And while I'm on Social Security, as part of your question, we are moving on a bill that would strengthen Social Security and make certain that we only make it stronger and not allow it to be attacked by this group to privatize or dismantle it. So we need to save our Social Security.
Good evening, Representative Tonko. Thank you for holding this town hall. My name is Christina Capitone. I work in podcasts, and my question is, I see the budget that the HUD department has proposed, and in that budget, they are going to eliminate many programs, not just cut the voucher assistance for rental subsidies, but they want to eliminate the family self-sufficiency program, the home program, okay? These are vital programs in our community, and when you talk about helping people with first-time homebuyer assistance, they can't get there without the family self-sufficiency program. Like, that is what we do. This is how we help people prepare to go back to college, to have vocational, training, to earn a higher income, to be in a position to be a homeowner and achieve the American dream. And I understand that right now you are outnumbered. I get that. So I hear you talk a lot about getting the message out. How are you going to do that? How going forward are the Democrats, as a group, going to retake the narrative away from the public?
Well, we're going to combat their message of fear and hate and go forward with sound discussion. It starts with, I think, asking questions, developing solutions, alerting people to what you just said, Marianne, about all the programs. And I'm aware of those cuts that they're proposing for HUD. We need to let the public know, but we also have to build the stories of folks who have been benefited by these programs. When you have a programmatic name or you have a ledger that this impacts, it's one thing, it's a telling thing. But there's nothing more powerful than hearing a person's story of what this meant to them and their family. And it's building that trust that begins with being a good listener. I think the best quality we can bring is listening. And listening to the public. And, I say yes. We want to restore those program cuts. I agree with you. And we can make a difference. So that we and us share the information. We develop the trust. We develop the message by listening. Put storytelling together and we take it out to the public. Now, the media transfers this information so that it goes well beyond one congressional district boundary. But people will get to hear the message. They heard the message on Saturday. Already been trying to beef up the counties at the parade in Washington and denounce what's happening here or say, we're going to find out who they were. Find out what? We're speaking our truth to power. We're speaking as residents of democracy. And we're going to fight these guts because we don't believe in them. And it begins with our connecting, building trust, building story, and building advocacy, sharing it with the public. Okay, we are taking the message to the floor. We take it to press conferences, and thank you. Thank you. I didn't get the last part of that.
I said just in light of everything that's been happening recently, I know it's a little bit vague, but essentially how can we ensure that as we send arms and funds to Israel that civilians aren't being harmed?
There's no denying the crisis in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis beyond belief, a genocide, if you will. And I believe that there are efforts that we need to make. I would hope diplomacy would be resorted to. I think that's our great hope. But it's important for us also, I believe, to support efforts like the West Bank Violence Protection Act, where we're making certain that the dollars and the resources that have been advanced are getting to the Gaza Strip. And whether Palestinian or Israeli, the people are suffering, and we need to address that. We also need to make certain that we follow that flow. There's a new measure out now about bombing, the Bombing Act, as it relates to Gaza. I've been asked by many to check out the legislation. We're in the midst of doing it, and I'm leaning towards supporting it because we need to make certain we have accountability, that our allies are acting in accordance with United States, international, and humanitarian law. And that is so important. Citing where the laws have been broken, the Constitution has been violated. They're building a record themselves, but we need to share that with the public and build the public sentiment on our side. And I think it's working. The fundamentals of this democracy, the people, the agents in charge, are working towards dismantling this big, beautiful bill, deciphering it, putting it under the microscope, and the growing numbers every day are telling us people are understanding what's going on. And the MO of the administration with the cabinet, you cannot illegally perform in that cabinet. When you have the cabinet members saying, habeas corpus is the right of the president to deport people, maybe we need training too. I don't know. But we are going to continue that fight. because they are the agents of breaking law, and they can't be tolerated.
Can we, the people, petition the Florida Bar Association, the DC Bar Association, the Louisiana Bar Association to get those people disbarred?
I think the right to petition is there. You know, keep in mind where the forces are, where the power rests. But it's dismantling that power and doing it with strong evidence of where the Constitution has been walked away from and where the laws have been broken. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's a good question. What can you do to assist us in our efforts in Washington? And I think Saturday was a good example. It was drawing a lot of attention. And I noticed that only, like, I was in many communities, but I'll use Colony Wolf Road as an example, where I walked quite a bit of the route. And I was struck by the number of people who drove by and tooted and signaled support. So it was well beyond, that ripple effect was there. But certainly to the people that were 7, 8, 9, 10 people deep along both sides of the highway for miles. And again, I walked about a third of it, I think. We just wanted to make certain that we thank the people. But that's one way to help. But it's also calling friends and family that you might know in other districts. And, you know, as I indicated, I did a town hall outside my district because I think people have a right to know what's going on with this. And you can't just mask over it and say it's big and beautiful because somebody said so. And, you know, when you share the pain and consequence of this document, people are upset. And when they know that it's done in part, along with the borrowing, to pay for a tax that millionaires they can come and claim. So I think it's reaching out to folks that you might know beyond this region, and also letting us know what you think might work as a solution. You know, I'm in this with you. I say yes to what you have done. It's been terrific. But feed us new additional ideas and give us some of the storytelling too, because when we personalize it, I think it really has that human impact that is so critical in this given moment of inhumanity with the budget.
So my final comment would be, can we just look at Project 2025, read ahead, because if Trump were to be gone tomorrow, that plan is still there, and that's what we need to do.
Yes, we look at Project 2025, but we need a Project 2027, the Democratic side, to advance against it.
As we begin to get closer to the end of our time, I'm going to ask people, first of all, if your question has already been answered, that's okay. You don't have to get up and answer a question. That would be a good thing if your question has been answered. And the other is, if you would be so kind as to limit your question to 1 or 2 sentences, just so that we have enough time to get them all in. So, 870-506. 870-506, 870-542, 870-542, 870-333, 870-333, 870-581, 870-581, 870-408, 870-408 and 870-420. 870-420.
Question. So when we beat the MAGA movement, if you will, has there been conversations on the Democratic side about legislation being passed to prevent something like this, to kind of patch some of those holes that Trump has uncovered?
Well, I think, thank you, Zach, for your question. I think there's, first, I think we need to go with campaign finance reform. Because I think a lot of this was big money paying for an election that overwhelmed the opposition. And I think that those dark money accounts that are not responsible or are not responsive in sharing their source, they're just masking an effort, and it sounds like a good government group, but it's many times a self-interest and oftentimes a greedy self-interest. So there's a number of reform measures in the election process that we need to advance so that we can prevent this kind of repeat, which is important. And beyond that, just establishing now, I think, an agenda for the next campaign, which will speak to all sorts of progressive tax policy reform that really brings back the benefits to the middle-income Americans and provides the programs that we need that create jobs and develop a sound workforce for those jobs. Thank you.
Hello, Congressman. My name is Sonia. It's nice to see you today after seeing you at the protest. Thank you for consistently supporting human rights from the Armenian community to the Ukrainian and just now calling Gaza a genocide. What do you say to lifelong Democratic voters like me who voted in every single midterm and local election, but are increasingly frustrated with the DNC, be that its disregard for the primary process which was terrorist on the presidential ballot, to failing to unify abortion, even when the legislative and executive branches are controlled by Democrats?
I want to get the first part of your question again. I wasn't certain I heard it well.
Sure. What do you say to lifelong Democratic voters like me who've shown up for every election, but are increasingly frustrated with the Democratic National Convention and the party as a whole because of all the different ways they disenfranchise and disregard the progressive base?
Well, I think that, there's currently a movement afoot with a new chair as they reorganize and restructure after the last election. And I think it's building a base here in New York and in our various communities through the national committee members to share with them what we would like to see as priorities and the reforms that are required in the party platform. I think it's a good way to start. And there's good folks that I know that we can connect you with that are leading that effort as we move into a new leadership. And I think it would be helpful for them to hear your report. But thank you for your commitment. Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Good evening, Congressman. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Hope you are.
Working on it. My name is Tonko. I'm with Detroit. You've been in Washington for a while. I worked with state legislation for actually for Danny Farrell, I should remember, for many years. We're professionals. We understand what it's like on the inside of the machine. None of this is normal. This is not how America is governed. And I would just like you to tell every person in this room, they're not crazy. None of this is normal. And a lot of it wildly wrong.
Thank you, John. Yeah, the process, when now allowing legislation to go before a review of Republicans and Democrats on a committee. Charged, they develop their expertise in that issue area. I'm on energy and commerce, which covers commerce as the name would imply, both domestic and international, energy and environment, healthcare as a major industry in our country, along with mental health and behavioral health. So you develop an expertise in those areas. And to have that resounding debate, and you mark up the bill so that what was perhaps missing in the author's development or the sponsor's development is taken to heart and mind, and you have a best package by building consensus. This is just, hard-fisted, skipping over rule of law, not really developing policy the way that it should be developed, and it's centralizing power in one individual. We have three distinct branches of government for a reason, for checks and balances, and it's been ignored. It's been ignored. So we need to go forward and make certain that we return to rule of law, that we return to making certain that the Constitution is regarded and respected, and that we have the public hearings on these bills, especially something like the budget bill. We introduced well over 30-some amendments in the budget committee. I asked to be placed on the budget committee, and the leadership granted my request. I thought it would be good for them to hear what I learned on the Energy and Commerce Committee and bring it to the budget committee table. Now, one of those 32 amendments was approved. It was just disregarded, no discussion, just took it down. So the budget that they brought up was not going to get support from our side because they didn't want to lend a voice to the Democrats. And so that is not rule of law, that is force of government. And when we had the Rules Committee, before the big beautiful came to the House floor for a vote, it began at 1 a.m. in the morning. And we had members galore. I think it might have been a record of members who came from the Democratic side to appear before Rules, myself included. I was there at 3 a.m. I didn't get to go till around 7:30. But you never know if it's going to go quicker or slower than anticipated. But I said, I'm going to get these amendments in. Not one approved. Not one approved. And I can tell you, the very last amendment that was introduced was by our ranker, the top Democrat on the Rules Committee. His daughter died from a very rare cancer at the age of 23 just weeks ago. I went to her funeral in Worcester, Mass. He introduced an amendment to restore the cut to NIH, the National Institutes of Health, on the particular research they were doing on that very rare cancer. And they told the grieving dad, no. That's what we have going on in Washington. Unacceptable. Thank you, Sean.
Good evening, Representative Tonko. My name is Sandra. I'm a 35-year combat veteran. And as I my question is twofold. Is that you got the lying being told that they want to make America self-free again, and they got the lying saying they're taking care of veterans. Yet they turn around and dismiss X amount of psychologists and behavioral health individuals. Then they also cut SIMSA and cut it down to half of it and defund it for rehabilitation, addiction, and everything by $11.4 million. How do they expect to keep us healthier and safer when mental health is real? It's not somebody faking it. It's not somebody being lazy. They don't know what works. And he is definitely sometimes trauma of where the east side of the band, trauma is real. And what are you all doing trying to help fill the banks to where we are not using our providers? Because all of the goal is to, hey, we need professional people outside the community. Why are you going to dump another 9 million people in a system that's already broken?
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Now, more importantly, thank you for your service to our country. That is powerful. The powerful service of you. Number one, when I address health care for the veterans, I really want to reinforce the resources for the Veterans Administration hospitals. The cuts here are brutal. They're brutal. And when I talk healthcare, I want mental health screenings for our veterans. War does terrible things. And there are scars, visible and invisible. And we need to make certain we treat our veterans when they return home with the health care in accordance with their service and their needs. I have pushed for all sorts of legislation. We've been successful. I do a lot of behavioral health and mental health policy. We've been successful. Parity that I advanced when I was in the state assembly so that you get equal coverage with mental health as you would with general health. A lot more to do. But before you start cutting the programs, as this big beautiful bill does, think about what you're doing while you're spending money on a parade. That could have kept programs going while they're playing. Thank you. You have my commitment to continue the fight.
This will be the last round of questions, so I invite 870-392, 870-392, 870-552, 870-552, 870-384, 870-384, 870-337, 870-337, 870-444, 870-444, and 870-347. 870-347.
Thank you for coming, Congressman Tonko, and thank you for having this town hall. Thank you for all the veterans here and all the first responders that keep us safe. I'm going to come from a different angle. I'm a first-generation immigrant. I'm a woman. I'm a liberal. My family's overseas, and I have 2 trips scheduled to go overseas. I don't see a problem leaving, but I'm afraid I won't be able to come back. Trump doesn't care about women. He doesn't care about liberals. And coming from Germany in the history of 2 world wars, and I've already spoken about this, it only takes people to do nothing and people afraid to do something for things to succeed. I've communicated with my sister overseas, and she says, don't send me any more rhetoric about Trump. This is dangerous. She's overseas, I'm here. This is dangerous not just for her, but also for me. I know that face recognition is out there. How can I feel better about being secure, about coming back, voicing my voice? I'm not going to stand in the shadow usually, but I have been quiet and it's not feeling good.
It's a dilemma we're in. Many people ask our advice if they should travel to someone's wedding, a family wedding in China, go to Europe. It's hard to advise. If we can get feedback from the appropriate agency, we can do that. But you raise a real serious concern that this impact with this budget has now found itself into international discussion. And these efforts to move to an authoritarian kind of government is a alarming a lot of people in other lands that always saw us as a beacon of hope. And so you raise an element of concern here that reminds us how important it is to get involved in this given moment. It's not going to happen quickly. It's not a simple solution, but it's all of us, the we in this room, myself included, working together that will get this done. And I'm convinced we'll get it done because we believe in this country. And all she stands for. Thank you.
And for the last three people in the interest of time, please keep your question to 1 to 2 sentences.
Good evening, Senator Congressman Tonko. Thank you for coming. I guess mine is real simple, Social Security. I applied for Social Security prior to the Trump administration in October. It was on, I've been there 5 times. I called several times, of which the longest I had to wait was 7 hours and 13 minutes for a representative to get to me. When the representative got to me, they could not help me with my problem because they said each representative helps you with a certain aspect of Social Security. For the last 42 years, they gave our government money every week out of my check. Alone, I waited 4.5 months to collect my first check. So the cuts that are happening, I think you should take some of those people and send them over to Social Security. What do you think?
I think, it's a highlight that we want to make. These agencies that are getting these cuts to their budget, again, a lot of institutional memory, people can direct you to the person in the agency to resolve it. We have connections that we've developed through the years that are facilitators for us. All of this is at risk. And when they wanted to close down the certain offices for Social Security, where they wanted to streamline and take away some of the vote opportunities, this is really destroying Social Security. And like I said, I'm on a bill to build it, to have people contribute that don't contribute now, that are in the mega bucks category. They should be helping to secure Social Security and hands off Social Security is not happening. We're going to make sure we stick to that every week.
Good evening. My name is Reverend John Carlberg from Loganville. I want to ask a question on behalf of a friend of mine. His name is Donald Manson. He lives in Bethlehem, West Bank. I visited him and his family last month. They had a family farm outside of Bethlehem called Temple Nations. They've owned that property for more than 100 years, but the Israeli government is trying to confiscate it. They have been repeatedly threatened by Israeli settlers carrying automatic weapons on their property. They remain committed to nonviolence, committed to follow the rules of the land and love our enemies. Their only real source of protection is the presence of international visitors. And as you know, for a variety of reasons, it's becoming increasingly difficult for international visitors to stay. And Congressman, I'm wondering what you and your colleagues can do to call attention to this and to call attention to the importance of having an international presence in the West Bank so that violence, the threat of violence is reduced. Palestinians have set out very, very important ways for them to have international, especially U.S. citizens, present with them to all that kind of protection.
No, thank you, Reverend John. There are so many people, the masses, from Israel and from Palestine, from the Gaza Strip, that are so supportive of getting things right. And these leaders that are messing things up, walking away from agreements, not resorting to diplomacy. I think, again, our role here as a facilitator, as a nation, as a concerned country, needs to bring people to the table and make certain that all laws, be they U.S. or international or humanitarian, are abided by. And make certain that we insist upon that. And that's the role that we should play. And we want that activism from our leaders. And we're going to continue to push it. But thank you.
My name is Karen, and my husband
they're pushing the big beautiful and increased budget for that operation. And again, we don't have the votes, but the Senate is reviewing the budget as we speak. And we had a hope that the pressure on the Senate right now will undo some of the damage now that it's becoming known to the American public. But ramping up those efforts while you're dumbing down and decreasing assistance for hunger and assistance for housing and assistance for general health care and mental health just makes no sense. So again, we have to get it out there under the limelight, under the floodlights, and make certain that public information will reach the senators as they deal with their portion, because it's probably going to come back. There's no way, I believe, the Senate supports this bill in its totality. So it will be coming back to the House, and we'll have our efforts again. But thank you for your work on Saturday. It's most appreciated.
Thank you to everyone who asked questions, to everyone who listened, for all of you for your attendance. And Congressman, do you have a few brief closing remarks you'd like to offer?
Okay, well, yeah, let me thank you again for all of the efforts that you made to get here tonight. I know you sacrificed family time, social time. Many people have a long day at work, and so I appreciate you making the effort. It's going to take all of us to make a difference. It's going to take all of us to win this battle. And so let's encourage each other to keep the energy level high, keep the enthusiasm going, and let's continue to do battle. This is the American democracy in action. And I couldn't be prouder than what I've been witnessing over the last few days. So God bless you one and all for being here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for attending tonight's town hall event with the United States Congressman Paul Tonko. Please ensure that you exit the venue in an orderly fashion and save the work that you